News Network with Chris Sanders. This Houthi war that started with this helicopter and our new alliance of 10 has grown then into India, now into Japan. Tell me how this isn't World War III. And for those of you that don't know, now you know. But one of those ships was a Japanese ship. That's their vested interest. And when India got involved, they represent some of the cleanest and finest of the merchant marine ships and fleets that are out there in the world. So everybody has a vested interest in international shipping, and that's what's going on behind me. But this is Biden's clever way of trying to start a war so that he can stay in office. Meanwhile, what they're doing is they're attacking our true president in the state of Colorado. I don't want you to get too worried about it. It's a private fair, it's a preliminary race, but they're claiming that there's an election, that he tried to do an insurrection, and that there is a violation to the Constitution. I'm going to claim the same thing, and that the people of the state of Colorado are in violation of the 24th Amendment, and they're creating a poll tax or other tax, and that is interfering with the Constitution of the United States of America, and the people do realize it, and we shall have justice for you interfering. And many of us know that, look at these phony wars that we're fighting right now. It's just political hoo-ha, political theater. There's fewer people that are dying in these wars behind me than are dying on our streets in America every day from fentanyl and from China's war with us right now. That's a true fact. That's going on, and I want you to know it. So it's something, but they're jamming up the Suez Canal. We're really lucky we made it through there, but the Houthis, and I'm not just talking about Houthi and the Blowfish, and Iran is supporting them, but then again, we're supporting Iran, $16-17 billion. This is how ridiculous this government is. We have 107,000 homeless veterans in the United States of America. We could have built every single one of them a home, given them a couple of acres to where they could have been sustainable, a 2-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms. That would have been real security. That would have been national security. That would have been freedom. And that's just food for thought, okay? I want you to understand that. Now let's talk about jury tampering, in my opinion. Jackwagon Joe here, he's approaching the podium. Listen to this.
Whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything. Anyway, I've got to go do this.
Are we expecting a hostage deal anytime soon?
Yes.
Let's back up to this influencing the jury and the American public.
You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything. Anyway.
If that's the case, let's listen to this. And you got to hear it from his own words. America.
We're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Okay, so these are some news politics that are happening here in the United States, but I want you to know in the state of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has determined that he will sign a law so that we can keep people out, except the only problem is that the law goes into effect next year. This is the true invasion behind me. America, wake up. This is the invasion, okay? This is our border. Look at I'm going to say the millions of people coming into our country, it's out of control. Okay? There is a steady stream of people coming into this country, and our government is doing nothing about it. This violates the general welfare clause of the Constitution. It also has a supremacy clause. We can't take all these people in that can't speak English or Spanish into our country. It's going to be on welfare. Now, we have a governor here who's in a wheelchair, and I think that he's more handicapped in more ways than one. We had 5 school shootings. He keeps on going out for his glamour or whatever the case, but in my opinion, he's a failure. He should say immediately, we got to defend the Constitution. Am I right or am I wrong? And let the border agents use guns and deadly force and say, get out of here. You're not a part of America, and I have to defend the Constitution, which is the general welfare and the peace and tranquility of the United States. And this is not adding to it. Now, on these general clips that we're seeing, we're happening to see women, but it's probably about 98% men down there, and that's what we're really facing. So Iran is basically testing out their drone technology and their stupid missiles or dumb bombs in combination, but they're fabricating these things for as cheap as basically $2,000 a drone. And the drones are different now because the drones have missiles, and they have a drone that is an air-to-air combat drone. So for merely a couple $1,000s, they can take out $1 million aircraft. And that's what you're seeing here behind me. These are drones that have infrared. These are drones that have air-to-air combat missiles attached to them. So our fighters back in the day had to just be on the lookout for other aircraft. They did not have to look out for kamikaze drones. And that's just half the bad news, but that's what Israel's looking at. Okay, so Israel's looking at that. They're using the Houthis as their crash test dummy. And now we have 10 nations plus India and Japan that are going to be looking at these type of drones going after their ships. Okay. This next thing is about what North Korea is doing out on the battlefront, and that's dealing with solid fuels. He's done 5 tests this year, but 3 of these tests have been with solid fuel. Now, most of the other people aren't going to tell you the importance of the solid fuel, and I'll tell you what it is. It's more stable, and it's a pre-packed of ingredients of basically ammonias and aluminums that when they mix together form a catalyst that can propel the stuff from here to kingdom come. Now, the real reason why this is a threat is because little Kim is sitting on so many submarines. That's right, just fewer than us. So it goes like North Korea, the United States, Russia, and China, but we're amongst the leading powers with submarines, and now he can shoot ICBMs from the submarines. So people don't understand the real victory dance that this guy is doing. It's not just that he can shoot him from his country. It's that he can shoot him now off the coast of California. Sometimes I have to really give you a clear picture of what I'm thinking so that you can understand the danger of what's going on. So now that missile right there, the Hussein, okay, now he can shoot it. He probably has extra packages courtesy of Putin or Xi Jinping that he can put in there, and he's got a lot of submarines, and the Houthis are the crash test dummies for Iran, but North Korea is going to be the crash test dummy for either Russia or China. And the weaponry is being flaunted, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And that's the threat. Okay. This next story is involving Britain, a fishing town north of London. And it's now the poorest town that's basically just surviving. I'm going to bring it up because it reminds me of Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Denver, Colorado. It's called the woke agenda. See, when you have a true woman or a tranny, fanny, that's running you, and let's get real, Queen Elizabeth had way more gonads and balls than King Charles has ever had. And that's just my take on it. But you need real men, like in Ireland. You need Conor McGregor. I don't care if he's rough around the edges. What you see is what you get. And with King Charles, you're having the World Economic Forum, a bunch of phoniness and anti-Christ, anti-godly things and objectives. And so I see these people in the doldrums, and they're suffering. And it reminds me of America. And you know, when you kick Christ out of your house, it's obvious out on the streets. And I've never seen so many zombified demons in my life, all over the streets of America, from Philadelphia, from Washington, D.C. Everywhere there is a liberal agenda. There is a destroyed city. Tell me this isn't true. Over the last 50 years, we didn't have tent cities scattered throughout the downtowns of the United States. And now we're trained as a society just to overlook them. And the reason why that wasn't permitted a long time ago, because we were all good Samaritans. And I am my brother's keeper. Many of us could be. Many of us practice that. Not today. So in Grimsby here, this is how it's looking for the people of England. And to me, that's unacceptable, just like when I see how it looks for the people of the United States, for the people of Ireland. It's time for us to close our borders for every country so that when I go to the United Kingdom, I can see the heritage of where I came from. Or if I go to Ireland, the same thing. The same thing from Norway. Europe, it's time for you to protect yourself and protect your boundaries. You need to listen to Viktor Orban and get behind great men such as him. I'm talking about the Prime Minister of Hungary. I'm talking about also the ones that have had the kahunas, like in the Netherlands, to kick out Islam. You heard me correct. Unless you want to wake up to Sharia law, people need to adopt the rules where they're going, or they need to stay where they feel at home. Now, if you doubt that, look at Argentina. They elected someone just like Trump, maybe even more radical, but those new radical ideas need to be the forefront for today's freedom, or we won't have freedom anymore. So, my next subject is the subject of Colorado. They're claiming a 14th Amendment violation on my beloved president. I don't know about you, but this is my president of the United States right there. I call him Orange Man Good with Watermelon Balls because he's a good man and he single-handedly diffused the war in Korea by going to the border himself. You know, and all those other plays that you see, King Arthur, he had Sir Lancelot. He'd send Sir Lancelot out there. Not Donald Trump. No, he went there himself. I want you to think about the sharpshooters that were on him. They could have killed him in an instant. When he went to Saudi Arabia, he was dancing with them. They all had real swords. You know who really should have the Nobel Peace Prize, don't you? He might be orange. He's like everybody's grandpa, and I miss him being in office. I really do. I miss having a country where I knew that my tax dollars could stay here at home and maybe invest in the American dream, not to go kill people in the Ukraine. not to go invest in the destruction of an ancient war in Israel between the Israelites, the Philistines, and the Gaza Heights. Like I said, go to the book of Judges 13:3. They have been fighting since 633 BC. We need to invest in ourselves, bring our troops back from Syria, listen to Senator Rand Paul enact the War Powers Act of 1973, and understand that the state of Colorado, when they want to bring up the 14th Amendment, we, the people of the United States, shall bring up the 24th Amendment and how you're in violation of that because we deserve an election free from error. You have created an error. You've also created a poll tax or other tax. And this is an amendment that is a later amendment. It therefore supersedes your amendment and should be listened to because you are in a violation of the Constitution of the United States of America. How can the commander-in-chief throw an insurrection against himself? Second, do you not understand that you, the state of Colorado, are guilty, being in violation of the 24th Amendment of the United States of America? I call you out. I call a district attorney in the United States of America and the government to follow me to prosecute everybody there, do the same sort of medicine they're doing to us, to them, because just read the 24th Amendment. We, the people of the United States, deserve an election free from error, free from interference from the United States. That means the FBI, the IRS, the CIA, or free from a state, including the state of Colorado, from creating a tax or a poll tax. And what do you think this is? How many millions of dollars do you think this is going to cost the polls and the taxation systems in the United States of America? Now, the way they're going to slip out of it is saying, well, it's just a private preliminary race. And there's only one candidate I see that's even on our side that's been honest. That would be Vivek Ramaswamy. I want to thank you for at least calling this out for what it is. You don't see Nikki Haley doing that. And by the way, if you've ever seen her speak, God, she can't even command 20 people. Now, as far as Ron DeSantis, he's being a turncoat. When there's a general in the room, you need to follow the commander-in-chief. If you're a Republican, you need to be unified. None of them are unified. So my hat's off to you, Vivek, for at least being unified. I've met Vivek, at least he cares. And right now, in my opinion, he would be the front runner for the vice presidential pick if he was to pick one of the people from that side of the swamp. Again, I like him and Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr. But there again, you know who also would be a neat pick? This is just another Chris Sanders pick out there. Who's that, Chris? Who would that be? That'd be Mike Huckabee. Well, I'd like him also to be the vice president of the United States. I could watch that guy and Trump every day and dig it. You heard me. What do you think about that? Just wanting to hear your opinion. Trump and Mike Huckabee. So I'll tell you, South Carolina, North Carolina, they're going to chime in with their candidate, but I want you to understand those candidates that are coming on the Democrat ticket have the highest homeless and unemployment rates in the country. So if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. I don't think we're going to break out into a civil war, but isn't it funny how we can't trust the RNC or the DNC? Why do you think America wanted Trump and Sanders way back when? Because they were the independent choice that was free from the swamp of both sides. And what are they giving us today? A world war. So, can we stand it? I don't know if we can. Now, there's a lot of things that are going on right now, and I want you to understand that. So, Iceland is going off, but that's not nearly the only volcano. Somehow, the Lord's going to speak up and win in the end. What do you mean by that, Chris? Well, there's nothing more powerful than what the Lord can do. And in Indonesia, for instance, this just happened. And it's coming out with just massive force. This lady here was just on the side of a mountain. and it exploded. And they've got several of them out there that are doing that right now. And so when the earth speaks, we have to listen, okay? And several people were just barely clinging on. All they know as far as the locals, they don't know how many locals are missing. They just know how many tourists are missing. So they had, let's see, 11 bodies that were tourists that recovered, 12 that are still missing. But as far as the size of these eruptions, I want you to see, they're massive, because in Indonesia we have them going off, and we also have them going off in Italy. And so this is, we hear about the Iceland volcano, but Mount Etna in Sicily, that one also has been having some serious activity. And we had a major solar flare, and it came past the Earth, and it could have had something to do with it. And so we don't basically combine those two theories together, but I think we should. So we were hit by a massive solar flare and a lot of radiation, space radiation, and somehow it filled up the chambers in Iceland. Somehow we've got a lot of response in Italy. Somehow we have a lot of response in Indonesia, and I haven't even stopped. So that's just so you know that there's a ton of stuff, and in the blink of an eye. I mean, anything within the last 6 months that's filling up and doing that, but there's massive amounts of pyroclastic stuff that's landing on the ground, even all over in Italy. And so then the people of Mexico, now we're going to Mexico and all up and down. When I was looking at that, the coast, many of these volcanoes all the way down to Fuego are active. So again, the Lord's going to win in the end. If you want to talk about global warming, I'm going to talk about global ice ages. Because in the blink of an eye, okay, the clouds and the sun can be shut out to where it looks like sackcloth. And you got to look at how the earth is making all of these, all these earth changes. They're happening right in front of our eyes. Okay? So that's not been major news, but it should be, because this is happening. Now, the other thing I want you to know that's happening, and this is in response to the missiles that are being shot by Kim Jong-il, and that is the South Korea, the United States, and Japan. They've been holding a joint exercise involving the B-1 bomber, okay? And so here it is right here flying in action behind us. And the reason why that's important is so that you know that we have an immediate response to North Korea, and it got deployed, and it's in the air, meaning, okay, you want to shoot that stuff, we're going to shoot you too. So the other thing is this, as far as all the candidates not being unified, I think that we need to understand, as far as on the Republican ticket, Nikki Haley must be somebody that's getting paid for by the Democrats. And as far as, I would even say the same thing about Ron DeSantis. The only candidate that seemed to, again, defend the president on that side would be Vivek Ramaswamy. And again, my hat's off to you there, sir, for at least defending the president of the United States of America. And that's what we need right now, are patriots that can come together and to say what it is. And that's what it is. Now, this brings me to another thing as far as volcanoes and volcanic activity. It's been going on. We're seeing it worldwide, like everywhere, okay? From Iceland to Italy to Indonesia. What's been going on in the United States? Well, it's been relatively quiet. We have a real big sleeper that's happening here in America too. And she spans from Yellowstone National Park on out to Mount St. Helens. And I'd be talking about the supervolcano in Yellowstone. And there's been so much controversy about this, and everybody has their own theories, but we were hired long ago to go out here and to service wells They're about 100 miles south of this place. And the volcanic magma had come up and literally it destroyed the zones by literally moving up. And that's when we're using seismic data. And this was 20 some odd years ago. You can look at me, I'm a little bit younger here. And the seismic data basically showed that the magma was moving even back then. And parts of the park started to lift up and started to move around. And so right now, should we be on a high alert? Well, it's hard to say, but the park has lifted up. There's been lots of tremors and there's been lots of stuff that's happened. But we do have a supervolcano that's in our own backyard. And it's something to keep concern about. And if something does happen, what can it do? Well, it can change life for us in the United States here in the blink of an eye. And that's something that I want you to be concerned about, only because I just showed you what's happening out in Mexico and Iceland and Italy and Indonesia and right up and down the coast. And we got a really big one right here. And, we need to pay attention to ourselves here at home. So if anything, I wish our nation could be more in tune with itself to where we'd be prepared. But right now we go and look at hurricane disasters and go, oh my goodness, isn't it horrible? There's been a disaster. And we need a proactive government. We don't need to be a nation in decline, just as our president says. And that's what we've become. We don't need to just say, hey, we need to cut a check. We need to have that check in advance, but we don't need to just stand on by for months with our thumbs just sitting where they're not supposed to be. We need to have houses that are prefabricated and ready, constructed in the states of Texas and Oklahoma and South Dakota, ready to go, because we can do that. We need to have air to water established in these homes so that these houses have water everywhere that they're at, including sustainable electricity on top of them. They all need to have Wi-Fi and stuff like that. And where applicable, we can run these things directly off the wells and natural gas wells and have power. These are things to make the world more successful. What are we doing with this government? We're leaving people that we should have brought over here. We should have brought all those people from Afghanistan back. But we let them get killed by the Taliban under this guy, the architect of destruction. What are we going to learn? That this government that's right now is not for you and I. In fact, they're for nobody. The only person that was there for us was slightly orange, slightly like my grandpa, slightly like yours. I kind of miss having him around. He was the architect of success, and now we just have the architect of destruction. The only thing he knows how to work with is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And I've seen it already in Afghanistan and in the Ukraine and now in Israel. I've seen the success of this Biden administration and the lies that they say with the jobs that they've created. I don't see any of those jobs here in America. Perhaps they're in the Ukraine or perhaps they're in Afghanistan, but they're not in the United States. I don't know how you're doing your figures. I don't even want to pay my taxes, but I have to. And I know that's the way you feel too, America, because we want a nation that invests in love, in each other, in ourselves, not just destruction. We need this guy behind me back in office, and we don't need states interfering. And if they want to call the 14th Amendment, we need to call the 24th Amendment. Because united we stand, and if we need to, then we're going to vote for a new 100 people to be our next 50 senators, and then all the new congressmen. We can do that, because if they want to deny us our president, we can deny them their jobs. We can hold our own elections, and we're capable of doing that. Right now, what they're giving us is a Chinese placemat. And this mail order fraud that's existing is happening while the borders are open. while they're demanding you and I to be vaccinated, while China's putting CubeSats in the air, while they already have a fractional orbitable bombardment system in the sky. But yet, the problem is supposedly our health here at home. We are a nation in decline. If you study the economics of this new war, from the Houthis to us, we will not be able to sustain it for more than 6 months until we're completely depleted. Trump could tell you that if he was looking at the numbers, but he's being attacked so much. You're hurting my grandpa. You're pissing me off. I don't stand alone. I believe that I represent 200 million Americans that believe in the Make America Great motto just like me. And we've had enough of this utter horse turd that you're trying to make us swallow, which we don't. Not for a second. This war on the Houthis is going to cost us because we're using $2 million missiles to shoot down $2,000 drones. They know it, and they're making a big flaunt about it. Everybody's trying to protect this Suez Canal, and like behind me, like you could see, they're hitting every ship they can, and they're being successful at it because, Jesus, Jackwagon Joe just gives them money left and right. That's how he's the architect of this war. And then it trickles down to the Houthis from Iran, and then we got to supposedly go and defend it. Now, the reason why Jackwagon Joe likes this war is this just because this really messes with other people's trade that need that Suez Canal really bad, like Japan, like Europe, like Africa, Denmark. I mean, if this was the Panama Canal or if this was LA Harbor, it'd be different. But here he can just meddle with the ant pile, just like with our troops being in Syria. Again, we need to enact the War Powers Act, like Senator Rand Paul said, or we need to clean house and get rid of all these senators, all these congressmen, because they don't know how to read the first paragraph of the Constitution, which ordains them and gives them the rights. And what I'm saying behind me is terrorism on a worldwide level that they're paying for. They need to bring our troops home. We need to defend the border. We need to invest in America and America only. And they might be able to swipe the slate clean and say that this is an illegal government that took house. But if that's the case, we need to take the power of coining our money away from the Federal Reserve, because the petrodollar doesn't work. The Federal Reserve, in my opinion, is constitutionally illegal. They did that when they had a jackwagon in office all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. So right now we can't get on board with this Israel thing. It's not about being there for Israel or not. Israel is actually committing war crimes. No matter how you slice it or dice it, we can't get involved in this. It is a religious war. If you say, well, all the Israelis are not religious, I'd say you're correct, but they're all kosher, aren't they? Okay, some of them are into being into Judaism, and some of them are not. Some of them are Pharisees, some of them are Sadducees. To life, some is fair, you see. To some, life is sad, you see. And then the faction that they're fighting is called Islam. And they haven't liked each other since inception. Nor have they liked the Catholic Church, okay, which is viewed as a cult.